everyone. Welcome to another enlightening panel of the AI Nexus debate series. So today's panel is a special one as it is the result of a unique collaboration between four of our global shapers hubs, Algiers, Surat, Ahmedabad, and New York Hub. So we're thrilled to have talented speakers with us today to share their insights and expertise on an issue that is of critical importance in today's digital age, which is the intersection of AI and cybersecurity. So as you can see, we witnessed the rapid growth of AI. More and more data is being shared, and only a selected few are aware of its potential danger and take necessary precaution to secure their information. So this raises several important questions that we will explore in today's discussion. So for that, we will focus on mainly different areas such as the intersection of AI and cybersecurity, the advantage, risk, and delve into some policy-making aspects. And then we will wrap up with the Q&A session to introduce themselves. So for today's discussion, we have Zino Haro from New York Hub and Liza Vanjani from Embark Hub. So Zino, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Hi, I'm from the New York Hub, and I've been a security researcher since 2017. I've done a lot of work with AI, blockchain weaponization, and I've also been in the startup space for a while. But for the past 2 years, I've been running or co-founded a nonprofit in the security policy space. So we're also dealing a lot with how emerging technology impacts the youth and regulation and policy.
Thank you, Zino. Lisa, the floor is yours.
Yeah. So hello everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to each one of you since we are all from different continents over here together. My name is Liza Vanjani. I am a practicing advocate by profession. I have worked with State Cyber Cell. I have been actively working at Global Shapers, where one of the active projects, which is Project Accelerate, under which we have a segment of cyber awareness, under which we make sure to give the cyber awareness to the ones for which it is essentially important. We understand the fact that it is most important to each and every age group, but the most vulnerable that I believe are the students who have the phone in their hand but do not know the boundaries to use it. So, as a part of AGS as well, which is Ahmedabad Global Shapers, we make sure to take sessions at schools and colleges, and yeah, that's there. I am a legal associate at Ambigals, and I have important activities in it. So that's all.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you. So thank you. We're very happy to have you with us today. So let's get started. So I do believe that many of us here are not cybersecurity experts, me included. So Zino, would you like to start by explaining what cybersecurity is exactly?
Yeah, so actually within AI, there's a very common misconception. I think there's been a lot of talk on AI safety. I want to say that AI safety is not AI security. So AI security has existed in a very clear, defined sense for decades, actually, back to the 80s, and I'll get more into that later. But AI security or cybersecurity within AI, it deals with the confidentiality of data, the model, and the prevention of leaks. So that's the confidentiality part. There's the availability, so making sure that the system continues to be useful for everybody else. So that could look like load balancing, distributing where things go in the network. And that might be getting too technical, but basically making sure that everybody can access it and do what they need to do at the right time. And then the last part of security is integrity, which means that is the data what it's supposed to be? Is the model doing what it's supposed to be doing? Has it been tampered with? And is the output what it's supposed to be? And that translates even outside of AI. It's how do you keep things private and confidential? How do you keep things running? And how do you make sure that things haven't been broken or tampered with? And that's the three cores of cybersecurity from the corporate side of things. If you go into the personal thing, it can look like, has somebody hacked me? And that's what everybody thinks of. Has somebody hacked my phone? Has somebody hacked my social media? Are people pretending to be me? Is this a phishing email? That's more on the personal side. But it all comes down to the reliability of everything you use in your day-to-day life.
All right, so what role does cybersecurity play in our daily lives, particularly in ensuring the safety and security of our online activities, such as banking, shopping, and communication?
I think basically everything,
Uh,
right? Is this for, I don't know if this is for Lisa or for me. Um,
Not
but okay. So for example, right now I'm in a convention center and I got a notification
at the moment.
from the Wi-Fi that this Wi-Fi is not secure, right? So for example, and that's and that's on my laptop. In your day-to-day life, it has to do with your, yes, your banking, the payments, your the integrity of any information you send. So for example, in this Wi-Fi, if I wanted to, I'm not going to, but if I wanted to, and if anybody's trying to hack in this building, um, they can see everything that's being passed through the network. So if you have anything that's capturing the packets of the network, because everything's completely unsecured, and it even gives me an alert that it's unsecured, then it is entirely possible to see the information, sometimes in plain text, depending where it's being sent to. Um, and that's just going to say, oh, this is this person's bank account username or something like that. So in your day-to-day life, it can be very big things such as your banking information when you're at a cafe. But it's also things that are less obvious. So if you have, let's say, your pictures, where are your pictures ending up? Who has access to a folder in your Google Drive? That it could be something as simple as that. And in that case, it's not so technical, but it is with awareness of what your data is and what you're doing with it. Um, and I think a lot of people hear cybersecurity in their personal life, and it sort of seems like an intimidating thing, or it's too technical, or you don't want to think about it, or you think maybe it's the responsibility of your telecom, or I don't know, maybe your company or your school. Um, but a lot of the time it's not technical. A lot of the time it's not clicking on weird links. A lot of the time it's having the right share to your Google Drive folders, um, and not writing passwords on sticky notes, things like that.
Right, thank you.
Yes. So yes, as Zeno rightly pointed it out, that it is very essential to know that there are many people who can have the access to a single Wi-Fi. I would just like to give a couple of examples. It is a very well-known saying that you should never, and I repeat, you should never use the Wi-Fi which is available on the airports. What most of us do is essentially we go to the airports, we download couple of series, and then we save it for the flight. Correct. That is a very wrong practice. What happened in one of the incidents was a man was sitting in front of another man. He was having a transaction, all right, using the same Wi-Fi of the airplane, whichever airport is what it was. So the other person could have the access of his networking, of his banking details as to what he was transacting. He literally just flipped the laptop and showed that this is the account balance that you have in your.
I've I stopped hearing Lisa, but I have seen very related cases where there will be people, and I did this when I was younger. I don't do that anymore. Uh, there's cases where you're in a public space that has a very obvious Wi-Fi name, and you can run your own Wi-Fi with the name of the thing and then just give free access. So everybody's passing through you. So that's a way that some people will set up, some hackers will set up and give their Wi-Fi a name that's expected for the coffee shop or the airport or whatever. and then just have full access to whatever everybody's using that Wi-Fi for. I've also seen people do that with cell towers, which is very interesting. So actually, not even just Wi-Fi. People can. I've seen this at DEF CON, and some other places, but they will pretend to be a cell tower. So your LTE 4G or whatever, like your phone will connect to a fake cell tower, and it's all running through someone's device. So that's been very interesting. I don't think you can guard yourself against that so easily, but it's just the cell phone one. But the Wi-Fi one, it is just be aware that just because a Wi-Fi says that it's from the airport, it's also not necessarily from the airport.
Right, great insight. Thank you. Let's jump now in the next topic, which is AI weapon. So can you guys tell us how was AI first introduced to cybersecurity? Zino, maybe?
So AI depends what you want to define AI as. If you're thinking of just pattern recognition or signature recognition, so signature, for people that might not know, it can mean a lot of different things. But one very simple case is you have a file and the file has a signature, and it's the same regardless of where that file is. So that's one of the very basic things that's been in practice since the 1980s. So like this is AI in terms of pattern recognition that's older than I think everyone on this call, or at least most people on this call. And that was just a lot of signature recognition tools. And the problem with that was that there were limits of data. There wasn't a lot of information. We didn't have data on, so between companies, there was less information sharing because again, this is the 80s. So a lot of companies, if they had a large enough workforce or a largely technical workforce, let's say if you were with AT&T, Bell Labs, IBM in the 80s, then you probably had an internal thing with local patterns. If you were a smaller company that was very technical, you were probably just purchasing things that looked for very genetic patterns that likely weren't doing much for you as a company. They weren't really protecting you unless it was very obvious that something was bad. And then you go into the 90s. DARPA actually started. So DARPA is the defense within the US, so it doesn't apply to other countries, but they were working on genuine machine learning. This is in the 90s. That's very far back. They were working on machine learning methods for security. Most of the products didn't get to production stage because there was so few data and computing ability at the time in the 90s. And then in the 2000s, that's where we actually started getting supervised learning. So that's people actively putting information into these patterns. So this is human intelligence powering machines, which is how it happened throughout the 2000s. And that worked very well because there was a lot more data. So in the 2000s, companies were now they basically had a website that was a .com bubble, all of that. So that part also started with URL blacklists and those kinds of things. So that's really the start of supervised learning, despite DARPA's failure in the past. And then 2010, they successfully did, or in the 2010s, they successfully did for antivirus. So that's when antivirus companies started doing machine learning, or not even machine learning, but just for signature detection. Cylance in 2012 was the first company that started doing anything beyond signatures. So the signatures are the very basic thing. This is what you need to understand, right? This is just telling me, is this thing, yes or no? And that's it. So that's what had been happening the entire time. 2012, Cylance started saying, oh, actually, we could use this same logic to work with traffic and network behavior. So Cylance as a company, okay, we're going to go as a software in your company and we're going to say this network is weird, this behavior is weird. Why is your CEO signing in from like China when they're usually in France? Like that's where that started. And then that really developed really fast, and everybody basically adopted this Like every security company does this to an extent now. The thing is that that has a weakness within advanced persistent threats. So if you have state actors, if you're being hacked by very dedicated and smart hackers, a lot of the time they don't leave any data, or the data that they leave doesn't look like anything special. So that doesn't give you the label data that you need to train these systems. So you can't train machine learning if there's no organized data set. At least you couldn't in the 2010s and even early 2020s. And 0 days, of course, have no data because they just started. It's the 0 day, it's like the first time this vulnerability is exploited. But now, so 2019-ish, about 2019 to now, they started working on semi-supervised adaptive learning. So that means you're still getting input from humans, but now it's learning by itself. So the systems are learning by themselves. And we're starting to go into self-teaching, which can hopefully be as effective as humans in detecting a possible 0 day or a possible APT. But like I said, sometimes they don't leave any information at all. So yeah, but that's sort of the history of adoption. It's been a very long time, and that's where we are right now.
Okay, thank you, Zino. So how do you think AI can contribute to enhancing the cybersecurity?
I think I was in a call right before this with someone that works in the telecom industry in Europe, and we all kind of share the same concern. So we're saying that AI is very useful in pattern recognition, and it is getting better at teaching itself and at learning potential things that people are missing. Okay. So the role of AI in cybersecurity. Now, I was talking to a person who worked at a telecom in Europe, and that was right before this call. And we kind of all share the same concerns. I was talking to some other people too, that it does have a value with your workforce. So for example, if you have, let's say, 5 employees and they're always looking at the same data, they're going to be so tired of looking at data that looks right that they might not even notice when something is slightly off. Because you as people in general, you get used to something always giving you the same result. So you don't even check it anymore. So that's a good use case for AI, where it's sort of relieving the amount of data that the team has to look through. There is a concern in some industries. So for example, telecom, and there's also concern with very small startups that there's too much trust in AI and teams don't necessarily understand AI or where they should implement it in terms of security. So you'll have cases where an entire team is laid off and replaced by AI, but then nobody can interpret what the AI says because there's no security team on site. So that's a thing that companies should look out for and make sure that they're not doing. Also, security is a very broad topic. So you're going to have people that are very good with networks. You're going to have people that are very good with malware analysis, and thinking, oh, I have one person sort of doing everything and supervising this AI that's running everything else might not be a good idea. But yeah, I think it does lessen the workload and it does help identify patterns. And as it's going into adaptive learning, then it could do more of preventing 0 day attacks and those kinds of things, hopefully. But yeah.
Great insight. Thank you, Zino. So let's talk now a bit about the advantage of AI in cybersecurity. Back to you, Liza. So can you provide us some examples of the application of AI in cybersecurity along with the benefits they offers and strategies for maximizing their potential to improve defense mechanism?
Yeah, sure. So one of the things that I would like to highlight here is that in big organizations, one of the most vulnerable aspect is the insider risk. We have many cases pertaining to insider risk. The reason being that the data of any organization is available to each and every employee. This is a common practice that we usually have as of now. All right. However, with the implication of data privacy in picture now, it is essentially important to not just safeguard the data of the clients or the customers or even the employees in any either of the organization, but it is also very important to also preserve it and then dispose the very same thing. Okay. Now, if this is to be done by a person, it will be very, I would say, tiresome thing. However, if we tell an AI to do the very same thing, it is very easier to do it. All right. So this is where the AI comes into the picture in order to prevent the cyber attacks or data breaches that could happen in either of the workplace or organization. All right. So that is the first point. Second, AI is very essential in even again, now I would call AI as a boon or a bane. It is completely on the individuals themselves to use it in such a manner where a criminal can use it to make any attack, and a common person or a bona fide person could even use it in order to safeguard themselves. They could use it to have a better infrastructure, a better infrastructure in the sense of creating firewall or something sort of there. All right, because in cybersecurity, firewall is a very minimal thing that is to be done. Along with the integration of AI, that would be very essential and important aspect. So yeah, that's it.
All right, thank you, Lisa. So back to you, Zino. How do you think that AI can help identify suspicious activities and prevent attacks?
I think so. One of the benefits that it has is a very, it's very good at seeing patterns and digesting a lot of information. And I think this is kind of what I've said before, where that's one of the most useful things that it can do for your organization is to make sure that your analysts or your SOC team is doing the work that they're supposed to be doing without feeling overwhelmed. And the thing is, I treat AI as a tool, and it's a very cool tool, but I still see it as just a tool. And I would have the caution to say that we shouldn't give it sort of undue power. And I don't know how else to describe that. But if you think it can solve all your issues, you're going to have a lot more issues. Just like any other tool. If you're sort of setting it up and letting it run by itself, you're going to get a lot of issues, just as if you set up, let's say, Asana and then didn't teach anyone how to use Asana. And now you have somebody running their personal calendar on Asana, and then some other team running external things on Asana, right? So it has a lot of potential to diminish the workload and to see patterns and everything a lot faster. But you have to do it with the context that your teams need to be trained and they need to understand what's happening. And as like an organization, you need to understand what's happening. But yeah, I think there's some potential in reverse engineering, which is something that I haven't really seen many companies talk about. There's some potential in reverse engineering, but that's in the very technical side, and most companies never deal with this. So, for example, if you have a malware sample or if it's espionage, it's very good with attempting to reverse engineer, and that gives you a lot of information. Most companies are never going to bother with this because they don't bother with that right now. But yeah, I think for me, the main benefit is reducing the stress of your workforce and letting them get through their work faster.
Amazing. Thank you. So can you go to the next slide, please? Right. So as you can see, many entities are raising concerns about the introduction of AI in their businesses. So now let's explore the rest of this part. So back to you, Lisa. What potential risks are associated with the integration of AI in cybersecurity measures?
Uh, there are many risks integrated with AI in cybersecurity. I would begin by giving an example again because that's the most convenient thing to understand. Now, we have even integrated the AI in banking. All right. The term is known as hyper personalization in banking. What essentially happens is the entire chain, which is usually handled by the people, is done by AI. Now, if you see with the vulnerable aspect over here is that they have the data. They have the critical and personal data of each and every individual. The person could be a prime minister, the person could be a layman. But what is essential is that the data is there with the AI. Now, how the AI is being given the commands to just use it and how secure we make it is what the most critical and important aspect is. So, as Zeno again rightly pointed out, how we give commands to it and how much power do we give to the AI is all that is essential. So, yeah, there are many examples where AI has been integrated not just in banking but many other sectors in order to automate it, in order to start the automation of various sectors. Correct. So, giving the right commands essentially, and then second, just giving the rights and what do you call it? The access specifically as to how much is important, just know to know basis, as we rightly call it in this terminology, that much should only be given, and that's how we can use it in a better way and we can decrease the risk that it could have. And I'm sure each one of us would be knowing that even the very big AI companies, they have had a treaty or at least a signature as of now, where for next 6 months they will not have any development in specific sector of AI, because we know that the only next thing that AI could go is wrong. We have seen deepfakes, we have seen many things going in very haywire thing, but if as a union, if we come along together, and since we already have an act on that, we can protect it at this stage. So,
All right. So do you think that there is any privacy concerns behind?
yes, of course. There are many privacy concerns. As I rightly told you, that the AI, if they have the data, it is prone. Anybody who can use it could also manipulate it to just gain the access of that data. Correct. So, yeah, of course, it does.
All right. Thank you. So back to you, Zino. Do you think that humans oversight is necessary for maintaining the integrity and reliability of cybersecurity systems that utilize AI technologies?
Yes. So it's so there's the AI safety part, right? AI safety is still developing, but that deals more with existential risks and ethics, and those kinds of things, and transparency and bias. But even within security, even if you want to get rid of the concept of AI safety and just go into AI security, um, that's something that still happens even with systems that are a lot less complex than AI. Any any technology that's outputting data, you need to have someone that's monitoring that the outputs are what they're supposed to be, that they at least look like what they're supposed to look like. And especially this is in the financial sector and in the healthcare sector, at least in the United States, and other countries have, different regulations, but these are the most regulated and the ones where you see the most data and the most, I guess, revisions and involvement from humans. But like terms of confidentiality, so like I said, security is the confidentiality aspect. It's the availability and the integrity of things. And for the confidentiality aspect, you have to have output filtering sometimes, and that has to be through human training at least at the very start. And realistically, as the technology progresses, and Google already does this. So if you see in Gemini, when you open up Gemini, it tells you, it gives you a notice. It says, by the way, this is being reviewed by humans. And a lot of other models also tell you that. But so there's also monitoring and auditing, and like I said, that just happens with everything. And I think that even if you get AI to be reliably correct, which is really what we're getting to, right? We're all very excited about what can AI do, but we're not really talking so much about, is it even right a lot of the time. And let's say that we got it to 100% correct, or even 95% correct with a lot of confidence level. Even if we did that, there still needs to be some oversight to make sure that it stays at that confidence level. So I don't think there's, let's say that they achieve human general intelligence at some point in the future. Even then, you'll still need multiple parties, right? Because if it's a model based on the same thing, and then you have another one that's based on the same thing, and they're cross-checking each other, they just have the same information, and it's the same model. So you're going to need a different, if you want to get rid of humans, you can have two completely different AI models. But yeah, I think it should stay with oversight as everything else has.
So as you may know, various parties are working on democratizing computing power, so potentially enabling individuals to train their own LLMs locally. So how can we prevent hackers from exploiting those tools similar to past incidents like fraud AI or worm GPT or any other tools?
I don't think you can. I think it's just something that you have to accept that's going to happen. That if any technology, there will always be people who, either because of curiosity, maybe they genuinely don't think it's wrong. That's another thing. A lot of people do things and they don't realize that it's illegal, because that law is not clear a lot of the time. So you can have a group of 14-year-olds saying, "Oh, hey, we have access to make our own one, whatever," and they're just having fun, and they're like, "Oh, let's see what happens." But then there's going to be the people that are very obviously malicious, and they have the intent to be malicious, and maybe they want financial gain. You're just realistically not going to stop that. And the best thing you can do is to see the value in the open models that the larger community can bring, and at the same time prepare and say, this is going to happen because it's happened with everything else. Anything that the public has access to, most people are going to use it for innovation. So like you give people the power to make websites, for example, right? You give them internet access, you give them a website, you give them Shopify or whatever other selling platform, and you're going to have people genuinely building businesses, and you're going to have people creating scamming businesses, and you can't stop that.
Lisa, do you agree? You're muted.
Yes, that is true. I do completely agree on that. There is no going back. As I previously mentioned, it even the fraudsters are using it, even the uh, law enforcement agencies are using it. So it is upon them how we make, and even upon us, how we make the best use or the worst use of it.
All right, thank you. Brilliant. Thank you, guys. So let's jump in the next topic. So for the regulation part, I will pass it to you, Harshit. The floor is yours.
Thanks, Amin. So Hi, this is Harshit Hemnani from Surat Hub, and I'll be your second host for the day because, yeah, it's morning in New York. So, while we were having this discussion, we have one panelist from New York, we have another panelist from Ahmedabad. One funny realization happened to me. So, I'm wearing this T-shirt which has NYC written on it, and actually, I bought it from on my last trip to Ahmedabad. So we are living in a crazy world actually. So coming back to the topic, regulation and policy making plays a very important role in AI and cybersecurity. So Lisa, my next question to you is, what steps can AI developers, security professionals, and policymakers take to promote responsible AI practices in cybersecurity?
That was a very just one sentence, but it has many different segments to it. I would like to touch each segment individually. Uh, First of all, yes, so EU interestingly has come up with an AI Act, but it is yet to be come into full force because the rules are not yet here. So it is not the right time to comment anything. However, what steps can they take essentially would cover many things, one of which has to be done immediately, I would say, is the regulatory aspect of the deepfakes. Now there have been many critical talks across the world as to how can we see that the deepfakes which are being generated can be differentiated from the original one. Now again, deepfake is one of that sector which is created by AI, but it is again the integration of cybersecurity and AI. So that's the reason why I'm going ahead with this example. All right. Now, what happens here, and the suggestions of the policymakers in this is, let's say, for example, when any deepfake is created, all right, what can be done is that there are, let's say, limited uh, platforms which generates deepfakes, or let's say even AI. All right, we know a couple of them. I'll be skimming through the very same thing in my PPT, and I'll be covering that aspect there. But the essential aspect that I want to tell you over here is that how we can differentiate, as you rightly have asked, is by giving some sort of watermark to it. Let's say, for example, uh, from an original picture, if there are 10 platforms who are creating a deepfake or any such content, there has to be a compulsion for those platforms to come with a watermark, so that in case if any explicit video or photo of any individual is created, it could be known by the users that that is not a real one. So that is how we can distinguish from a real and a fake one. So that would be one aspect to it. Secondly, how we can do it, even the policymakers are confused at this point of time. Not just the developing nations, but even the developed nations. So let's wait and watch as to what comes up. But I'm sure that something concrete is already cooking.
We have had, and thank you everyone for having here. It was wonderful having you all, and thanks for spending the time. And thanks to both the panelists for sharing the insight. It was great having you. Thank you, folks.